Hi everyone, my name is Heleniq, and with me today is a fantastic man called Marcus Ambrester. And Marcus is actually an empowerment coach for women. And he has a very specific approach which he sends out on his pages on Facebook with a lot of compassion and what I consider to be a real depth of understanding of women's struggles and women's issues. Now, if you're not a woman and you're watching this, you will hear Marcus talk today about the experience men are having in relationships. And if you are a woman watching, you will also start to see what I mean by this incredible depth of understanding about how women like us, like you watching, get so overwhelmed by life, sometimes wonder whether there's something wrong with us, especially in relationships, lots of challenges at the moment, and our hearts get shut down, and we really need to know that men, at least one, maybe even just Marcus today, understands us. And I think this is why I wanted to call him in today, because we just had a chat before the interview saying that we've spoken for a long time back and forth just as Facebook friends, and finally it just felt right to have this conversation. So we're bringing to you something special. This is a talk about men and understanding men in relationships. Next we'll talk about women, and then we'll also talk about relationships and the challenge that we have in that incredible crucible we call a relationship between a man and a woman. So welcome to you, Marcus. Thank you so much for making the time. It's really a long-standing joy to have this moment finally to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for asking. I'm excited to have this talk.
Yeah. So we did say that we wanted to introduce what we're going to do to everyone listening with a short meditation. So perhaps we can start with that. We just want to help get everybody present, get you into where you really are now in the room that you're sitting in as you watch this content, because we've done our little meditation, myself and Marcus, to tune into each other already. But to tune in with you, I think it would be really nice if we could just entrain ourselves all together into one space. So just take a moment to notice where you are. If you're watching this video while you're moving somewhere, perhaps you can just honor the fact that you're watching it in your busy life, and just take a moment to just be present to that. And if you are somewhere where you can be still, maybe you can put your feet on the floor, rest your back into the chair. Just take a moment to let your eyes drift down so that you can close your eyelids and just focus in for a few minutes here. We're not going to do this for too long, but we want to just bring this powerful sense of being that we have in life into full focus for a moment here today, so that we can really reach down through our breathing into the body. So as you notice your breathing now, try to travel with one of your in-breaths. As you inhale the breath, try to travel down through your nose, back of the throat, down through the chest, just to where your navel is, your belly button, the place where you were born, where you originated. Science tells us that this is the first area where the cells start to multiply when we are born, connecting to the umbilical cord to our mother in utero. Just focus on the origin of you, your originality, your uniqueness, your essence, symbolized through this area for a moment. And notice how it also rises and falls every time you breathe. The beginning of you, the letting go of you, all in this area. Just take a moment to respect the fact that you're here with us today, that what we will share with you is sometimes sacred knowledge, knowledge that's come from lots of trials and tribulations, challenges of our own. Some of it is expertise. Both Marcus and I are therapists, trained in different ways to help people in painful times, people who are hurting, and to also illuminate, perhaps together, some of the ways through the labyrinth of life, and especially love relationships. So just tuning in for a moment there to the original reason you join us today. Honor yourself for that choice, and together we learn, and together we grow. If there's anything else you'd like to do in this moment to complete this short meditation, maybe just to relax your shoulders, realize any body pain or difficulty, and just send the breath to that place. Do that now. And then on the next inhalation, we breathe together. And exhale. One more time, breathing in and exhaling. Now we bring our awareness back up to the nasal passages, to the nose, into the head. And breathe in one last time all together. Ready to learn, ready to grow together. And relax. Come back to this moment here and now. And just a special thank you from me for joining us. So Marcus, we're going to dive straight in, like we say.
Okay.
Dive into the deep waters. And I explained to you when we met that I really felt that you had a powerful presence in the way that you articulate what women struggle with in relationships. That you are almost like and maybe sometimes totally like a Jedi. The way women can become connected to their God essence or to their goddess nature, and how that they can actually step into this power. You really help them to reach that place. So when we look at men and we see that men are also faced with so many challenges in relationships, can you tell us what do you think is one of the greatest challenges men have with smart, beautiful women, or women that are traveling on that journey to actually get connected to something really powerful in themselves?
Yeah, great question. The biggest thing that comes up is it comes from men are not taught how to deal with their own insecurities in a really healthy way. And so, like, if I had to give a one-word answer, it would be certainty, where so many, like, we all want to feel certain because there's a confidence that comes with that. But if I'm coming from a place of feeling really insecure, then I have to be certain, which means I got to make you wrong. Like, I have to be right because my self-worth is riding on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I've got to be right, that means I've got to make you wrong. And it really doesn't matter at that point what the truth is. I just have to defend my position, not because of the content of what we're discussing. We may be arguing about whether or not, like, this picture is straight on the wall. But if I feel like, my very being is at stake, then I've got to be right. I've got to be certain. And that means you've got to be wrong. And the so many, like, probably 95% of the arguments that couples bring to me they wind up quickly becoming about I'm right, you're wrong. And those quickly spiral down into you're not right. And they try and prove how each other's wrong in some way to try and prove that they are right themselves. And those arguments go nowhere. They absolutely go nowhere because the real issue is not being addressed. It may have started out about, whether or not that picture's straight, or whether you put the toilet paper on the roll coming over, going under like that. It may have started with one of those things, but then the issue becomes my worth as a person, or your worth as a person. And so coming from that low self-worth place, the like certainty becomes a sword that, where both of us get cut. And and I woke up this morning when I was thinking about talking with you today. The word certainty just kept blasting in my brain. And, I thought about how certainty is something that feels really, really good coming from a place of genuine confidence, and where my self-worth is not at stake, is there's no doubt in there, and I can step forward confidently, bringing all of who I am in full faith with whatever it is that I'm doing. And and that's when certainty is just fantastic for us.
Wow. So it's explaining so much around control. Like, I wanted to burst out laughing at a certain point because I remembered Dr. John Gray, is it, who talked about these 3 important things you could say to men. And he said one of the really important things to say to a man to please him and to reassure him, but because men love it, is to say you're right to a man. And I think it speaks to what you're saying in a way, because and I just want to see if I understand that reassurance that the man is right and that there is the certainty. When a woman can surrender that, and he is right about something, it's not to play the game of that, it's to be genuinely affirming of when a man's idea is great, is to say, great idea, honey, because men really like that, to know that they have a great idea, and they like the reassurance. The validation comes in a different way. Women like to know that they look appealing, or they look inspiring, or of course not just that. But I find it very interesting to have that in my head while you were saying that. So something around being very certain as a man and knowing that you're right tends to appease a man often. I don't know, that was Dr. John Gray's advice. So is that what you mean, that somehow you realize that men are struggling when they try to see the woman's point of view, and they might then say, well, you're wrong and I'm right, or that underlying the conflict could be this need to be right? I mean, I know women have it too. I don't want to abscond and say that women are not playing that out either. I think it's might be slightly different or the same thing totally. I don't know. The ego always likes to be right. But when you speak about the uncertainty, is it connected to control, being in control?
Yeah, more like certainty and control are both symptoms of the fundamental need to feel good in the world and to feel good about myself.
Got it. So the big challenge they have with smart, beautiful women is that they have that challenge amplified a little, because there's a threat or a intimidation or
absolutely. Yeah, it's the so what I hear a whole lot from really strong, powerful, badass women is that men are intimidated by them. And a lot of times the challenge for women, and in the next video we're going to do, we're going to talk about women more, but those women, when they get halfway into that journey of stepping into their power, they intimidate men, but haven't gotten to the full confidence place yet. So when men stay away from them, they got to think it's something bad about themselves. So they think either I'm not attractive enough or something's wrong with me, or something in that ballpark, where their own insecurities come up,
Right.
and they haven't yet gotten to the place where they go, this is awesome. I'm repelling 100% of the wrong men.
Right.
Where all those men that would be intimidated, those men that are going to be intimidated by them, are the men that they don't want to be around anyway. They just haven't gotten to that confidence place yet.
Yep.
And so, in the way that I see men really, really shooting themselves in the foot, kind of is when they feel intimidated, in order to feel really good about themselves and to be right, is like, I've got to be right. They've got to make something about the woman bad. And so they'll either say, she's a bitch, or she's bossy, or, like insult her in some way, to say, I didn't want to get close to her anyway.
Right.
And all of that is like an ego level defensiveness against looking at the insecurity inside about, wow, this is an amazing woman who might hand me my balls at some point, and that fear of emasculation is what the kind of defensiveness is working from.
So what do they really need? And what do they love in their female partners? But more so, what do they need from them, do you think?
When it comes to those insecure places, they need some firmness and gentleness, and like some understanding. And well, the most important thing is acceptance. Is if what the fear inside is that I'm not okay, then first I need to feel accepted.
Right.
And until I get that sense that I'm okay, then all I can do is be defensive. And so like, for example, I'm in the middle of growing my business, like, to the next level, going from, like, I've worked my butt off to get here. Now I'm looking to go here. And I happen to be dating a woman who is a, like, enterprise level business executive, and she's got so many ideas, and she starts talking, and she's going 100 miles an hour, because that's how she's gotten to where she is in her career. And it caught me off guard the first time, and I was just like, oh, all of a sudden I feel stupid. And she's already said a few things. I have no idea what she's talking about. And I can see where 10 years ago I would have kind of tried to gloss over it and either tell a story that I've got it under control, or I'm doing what I need to do. But it would have been basically saying, no, back off. Like, I've got this covered. I don't need to hear about it, because I'm good. Like, I'm good. I'm okay. Again, me saying I'm okay.
Right.
And and what seems to be like kryptonite for most men, it certainly feels like it to me, except I've learned better now, is letting ourselves be vulnerable. Because that fear inside is like, it rattles us to our core. And and every time, like, using the example of growing my business, it's like every time I've taken another step in my business, I face the same fear. And it came up, starting the business. It came up marketing the business initially. It came up trying to get to like the first plateau that I hit. It came up going to the next plateau, and it's like something inside of me feels broken when it comes to business. And and so like it's a really, and it's not like just broken in business. It's like the way it feels is I am broken. I'm no good. I'm bad, terrible, just a horrible human being. And so having this discussion, sitting on the couch on a date, talking about my business with this badass woman, I said, hold on a second. And my hands were shaking. And I said, I want to hear everything you have to say. And you're going to have to be really gentle with me, because there's a place inside of me that feels broken when it comes to business. And so we may need to stop and just breathe. Like, you may need to breathe with me, when I'm really triggered around this. And like, that's a real different response than saying, yeah, no, I don't think that's going to work. This is what I'm going to do instead. I'm going to do my marketing this way. This is the direction I'm going to take my business. And it's real different. And it's a huge difference in terms of the emotional connection.
Yeah.
Because if I said, look, I'm fine, like, I'm sure that works in your field, but in my field, that wouldn't work at all. It's a real different thing. It's like the opening for heart to heart connection is there when I say, look, I'm really scared right now. There's a place inside of me that feels like it's about to crumble.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be, I'm essentially saying, I want to be close to you. And so, like, if you want to be close to me, sometimes you're going to have to slow down, take a breath with me, because I am really freaking scared right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of vulnerability and having the ability to communicate it when it's going on is something that I don't see in a lot of people, but especially not in men. Is, in our culture, we're taught that men are supposed to have their shit together. They're supposed to be in control. They're supposed to have the answers. They're supposed to be, tough guys who've got it going on. And while that's slowly changing to some degree, it's also not changing much.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And I really uh, think that kind of emotional honesty is the future. And we don't have a
Yeah.
lot of it. And we don't have a lot of it happening in relationships either. Not by
Yeah.
many women, and certainly not by many men that I've seen as well. And I can understand, as you paint that picture, how much difficulty there is in being able to connect in that way, because I think, as you say,
Yeah.
you need the acceptance first somehow. It's almost like women are left with the job of having to correct what society never allowed men to do somehow. So
Yeah.
this is an interesting transition then into this next question, because maybe we've answered it, to look at what is the programming that men are getting and what is the truth. What's the lie that men are taught to believe, that they're not supposed to be vulnerable. They're supposed to have their stuff together. They're supposed to know a lot more about business than any other woman who would come into the picture and start
Yeah.
giving advice. And of course, he should know that already, or he should just definitely listen to the boys. Don't listen to the women's advice. Really, it's not that
Mm-hmm.
useful somehow. So,
Yeah.
so would you add anything to that? What do you think the men are being trained into nowadays, even, and what's the truth?
The here in the United States, I live in the South, in kind of the southeast part of the country, and there's the more conservative religions have like taken this idea and put it on steroids, where it gets like written into Like, it gets written into the unwritten rules, but it's definitely spoken about. The men are supposed to be the spiritual leaders. The men, are supposed to be right all the time, and it's a way of subduing the women. And the women are taught they're supposed to support their men. They're supposed to taught to follow their man's lead, and to, in a way, the way it comes out and the way it's the actual practice of it, it lands at times like the woman's supposed to just be a sycophant, like not have a brain of her own, to not have a voice. And the luckily that is changing to, to a large degree in in the religious teachings, but it speaks to why there's such a big movement now into like non-religious spiritual practices, where like a lot of events that I go to, a lot of gatherings that I go to, are 60% women, 70% women, and it's because they're stepping into a spiritual gathering where women are honored equally.
Right.
And in the tradition that I'm in, we do Native American spiritual work with sweat lodges and dances, and a huge part of it that's spoken equally as much as anything else, is honoring the divine feminine. And that that's never spoken about, in the rest of the culture that I've seen.
Yeah.
So that it's like it's reinforced when we're boys, we're reinforced that if we do have feelings, I was like, if I was upset in middle school, like if something was really, if I was feeling hurt around anything, it meant that I was gay, and being gay was bad, and being gay was the most horrible thing. And and I see the kids today. I've got two kids in middle school. There's the same kind of picking that kids do with each other around self-worth. But something now that's going on is there's more acceptance of a little bit more acceptance with gender equality, and that's really good to see.
I really hope so, and I hope it's going to spread further, because it's almost reductionist, I think, the kind of view that I see men growing up into and actually really struggling with as well as young adults in the world, and especially all the responsibility that men are sort of expected to carry and then find out they struggle to carry too. And really, we do need to redistribute things. So it's great to hear that from you, Marcus. A representation of more equality in the spiritual kind of teachings that you're following as well there. So the biggest lesson you got from a woman, and what it was, that actually opened you up to accept that. Because I'm pretty sure in relationships we're getting lessons all the time, and in life we're getting lessons all the time, and we don't necessarily sit back far enough to receive all of them all the time. There's certain things that make us ready, I know. So I'm wondering if we can point to that a little bit to see sort of how those messages come through and what makes them land.
Yeah. The that fantastic question. I just started thinking about my teacher from my spiritual community. We had, she turned me loose after about 8 or 9 years, and I actually lived with her for and it seemed like 3 years, but I think it seemed like longer because we got, 10 years of healing done in about 18 months.
Wow.
And and I really honor and so much respect for what she offered me, because there were, uh, like 2 or 3 times a week, we were having long discussions, and it was an amazing healing time for me. And so much of it revolved around um, me developing a sense of safety and security in the world, and feeling um, like me being here was a really good thing, and me learning to welcome my own presence and to feel welcomed in the world, where I could really show up and bring that vulnerable part of me. And
Wow.
and again, it was her being very, very firm and incredibly gentle. And so it was like she was saying, like, here's this place, and you really need to go there. And the first step felt like it was going to kill me. And so she didn't keep pushing for this. She was like, meet me right here. Can you take this step? And it was holding my hand while I did it. And that's real different than the way, um, a lot of men try and lead, by saying, go, get it done. The outcome is the only important thing. And, you know, I don't want to hear about your problems, and there's a place for that kind of teaching. The, I remember, saw a great video clip of a basketball coach during practice. The guys had just run the stairs in the arena, and they were all exhausted. And I had run those stairs in that arena. It's a 20,000 person arena. I've run those stairs there, and it's a leg breaker. And the coach was like, I don't want to see the effort. I don't want to hear how tired you are. Show me the toughness. Show me the swagger. You know, basically do it like a man.
Wow.
And there's a great place for those kind of teachings, because there are times we've got to go into different situations in our life with that kind of confidence. And if we all have those places inside that feel broken, and so knowing when to come at it, like, where you're going to bust somebody's balls, where you're going to be like, just shut up and get it done. I don't want to hear it. Just go. And there are times when you got to stop and say, take a breath. Tell me what's going on right now. Feel what's going on, because this is big. What's that? What does that feel like inside? And, culturally, men are trained to say that doing it this way, that, you're a pussy. You're soft, you're weak, you're not a man. And that fear of emasculation, is kind of almost like it's bred into us as being the worst possible thing. And we're not taught that when we combine, like, our strength and our vulnerability, we become unstoppable. And like, I had a guy who's a Navy SEAL, Special Forces, toughest man you'll ever meet, and he happens to be married to a yoga teacher. And and they're both frustrated in the relationship, and they love each other dearly, but they don't know what to do. And the and he was like, God, what does she want? Like, does she want my soul? And I was like, yeah, she does. She totally wants your soul. She wants it all to herself. And you know what? It's going to be awesome because your heart and your soul are going to be safe with her. And he looks at me just like that thought never would have occurred to him. And I had him, I said, which side's your strong side? Your right or your left? And he said, on my right. I said, okay, stand on your right foot. And this guy's big. Like, I'm 6'2" and 230 pounds. I put in my time in the gym, and this guy could have broken me in half. And so I said, okay, stand right there. And he's standing on one foot. I said, your right side's your strong side. Stand on your right foot. And I shoved him over on the couch. Now, I wouldn't do that with many clients, but this guy's a tough guy. He can handle it. I put him on his ass on the couch. And I pretended like I didn't mean to. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought that was your strong side. Okay, come here. Stand. Your left side must be your strong side. Stand on your left foot. And he's looking at me like, what the hell are you doing? And I shoved him again, and he was ready for it and kind of hopped and caught himself. And I was like, see, if you stay in your tough guy mode all the time, it's like trying to stand on one foot, and I will bust your ass every single time. I said, but now stand on both feet. Put your feet, a little bit more than shoulder width apart, and bend your legs. And I pushed him as hard as I could and couldn't budge the dude. And I was like, now that is what she's wanting. She's wanting your strength and your vulnerability. That's what she's asking for. And I said, now there are times, when you got to bust down a door and go in and you don't know what's on the other side of the door, but there may be rifles pointed at you. All we need is the strength. But you come home, if all you bring is your strength, she will bust your balls constantly because she knows what's inside. She knows there's a tender-hearted teddy bear inside, and that's what she wants. And he was just like, oh my God, how do I do that? Great question. How do we do that? And that's the work that we end up doing with men, is getting them to where they feel safe enough to feel those vulnerable feelings, to feel that vulnerable place inside, to feel the fear that's going on in there, but they've got to feel safe enough. And that takes a lot of work with some men to create that safety.
Such a great exercise, very touching
Mm.
story, and very typical as well, isn't it? That we tend to, I think we could find that in a lot of women too, that sort of very iron lady, kind of cold, disconnected, detached type style, and then how we all have to come into our marriage of our own polarity, where our own this and that, masculine, feminine, light and darkness, be able to see our own shadow and really work with it. And I think your story before also told me that in a different way of being able to share what you find difficult is being honest about your shadow, but also not allowing it to overshadow who you are and your strength, your beauty, your grace, your power, to be able to see both in a person and bring out both for your partners. For some people, one of the most difficult things in the world, and for most of us, I think, a really big challenge. So there's something about the vulnerability that's really difficult for a lot of us in a way. But I hear today we're speaking so much about how a man's sense of safety in the relationship is so important for the vulnerability to be possible, to be shared, to be exposed like that. So do you think men have grown in that in any way, or would you say something on their journey has been a greater point of growth, like the key area that you feel men have grown the most in the last decade or the last 100 years, what would you say men's evolution in relationships has brought us to? What would be their greatest key area of growth?
Yeah, I see so many different things happening in the world where
Yeah.
every time I start feeling like proud of the direction that men are going, I'll run into somebody that just leaves me just like, oh no. And, and every time I feel myself expecting men to kind of be emotional idiots, somebody will surprise me. And the it's funny. 2 months ago, I was in the hospital, had to have emergency surgery, and it was really, really sick. And it was um, three men that from my spiritual community that came to visit in the hospital, and getting to sit with them. Even had to have a trach, and so and even while I was having to cover like the trach tube to be able to talk, and then uncover it to take in a breath, and so the conversations took a long time. They were so patient and so loving, and I just felt like I was getting wrapped in love by these big, strong, tough, accomplished men.
Wow.
And and it was just awesome. And then and then like just yesterday I had a male client here who has been shut down in his own heart for so long. He he seems to have forgotten what any kind of good feeling feels like. And the and it's so hard to see. And just getting him to take a breath and feel his sadness is was hard. And trying to get him to feel a little piece of joy about anything was just impossible. And it's like he's shut down on the really good feelings and shut off the really bad feelings. So he's got this really narrow band of feelings that he's allowed himself to feel, and it's all just just like walking through mud. It's like he never lets himself fall in a hole, but he never lets himself walk on solid ground either. He's just walking in mud constantly. And and it hurts. It just kind of hurts to be in his presence. And he's a great. Yeah, and he's a great guy, just a super guy. And he has no clue that he's a good guy. He thinks he's just the screw up that is just trudging through life. And and I said, it sounds like in your personal life and in your business, you need a win. You need something that feels really, really good. And he was just like, yeah, that hadn't happened in a long time. And it's so hard. Um,
Sounds so heavy, like
yeah,
of these great men supporting you to take the slowest pace of conversation, and then this other contrasted
yeah,
guy who doesn't know it, who's stuck in the mud and the heaviness. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah, so interesting to see those contrasting pictures. So the men evolving, at least to the point where I think there are so many examples now actually of men who are getting more connected, if we really look at that. And even your work with the guy who's sort of stuck in the mud, he's there doing the work to connect somehow, even though it's hard, right?
Yeah,
That's not something that we had so much. I don't know what it was like before, but this whole idea of men getting more connected to how they feel is relatively new, right?
Yeah, it's as much as I can tell. I know, like for my father's generation, it almost never happened that he or anybody that he knew really talked about their vulnerable feelings, or the most they ever said was, "Yeah, that didn't feel good." That was kind of it. And
Yeah.
the yeah, and so now that there's there's definitely a lot more men opening up to it, and some of the men's work that's going on is great. And I've got some good friends and I know a lot of people that are doing some really good work with men, and it's fantastic. So the and one thing that is seems to be a really it's sort of like the spear that bursts that bubble, that protective bubble that some men carry around, that's around them, that just goes everywhere they go, that just says nobody, like, I'm not going to be vulnerable with anybody. Thing that can burst that bubble, um, is when men do feel safe and feel really honored, and 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 especially when their masculinity is honored. They feel that acceptance, they feel that all of who they are is accepted. Then men can be more affectionate with each other. And the because when we've got that shield up, the men, so many men keep any kind of affection away, especially from other men. And the when that defensiveness is not there, men being able to really support men and feel a loving connection with other men, um, that has kind of a magical effect. And it when, again, I know when I was growing up, like if I had said anything like that, I would have been, everybody would have given me crap saying that I was gay.
Right.
And the there's, like, men tap into a source of strength inside around that feeling safe and secure when they know that other men have their back.
Right.
And when it comes to, we see that, like, in combat situations where you've got your team members there that have your back, you can take that next step forward. With emotional stuff, knowing that you have, these men that they love you, they care about you. It's a really it's a pretty amazing thing, and it gives men the courage to feel more, to be more vulnerable. And it's a pretty magical thing when a group of men all feel safe enough together to do that.
Yeah.
It because that doesn't happen a whole lot in the rest of our culture.
Absolutely. And we've come to this point where I want to ask you the last question and wrap up with our really deep exploration, really, of how well men are actually doing and
Mm-hmm.
how much is being revealed. Actually, it's almost like we have to be taking things away as opposed to just doing more or putting more things there, and
Mm-hmm.
this is happening, sort of being allowed to take off layers of expectation, being able to show more of who they really are, and women being more conscious of how they can provide that acceptance but stay with that very strong firmness. What do you want women to know about men as a last thought for our talk today?
Mm.
In relationships and in finding
Yeah.
good relationships, what should they know about men? All of the above. And
Yeah.
highlight one thing maybe that we haven't said so far that comes like bullseye.
Yeah. Um, it would be, I would tell women to be aware of their own projections that come from their hurt. And because a lot of times what I hear women saying is like, he doesn't love me, he never loved me, never cared about me, doesn't care about me.
All that victim
Uh,
blaming, shaming.
yeah, and a lot of times when that happens, the men are just as frustrated. And like, if we could stick a microphone straight into the man's heart, into his emotional heart, what we would hear is, I love you and I don't know what to do. You know, I love you and I'm scared. I am terrified inside, and don't go. And that's a whole different message, you know, than what lands with a woman of, you know, he doesn't care about me. If, you know, or, you know, if he loved me, he would
Blah, blah, blah.
not be doing this. Yeah. And
Sure, that's such
the
a humbling reply that you gave right now. I think
yeah,
hearing those words is very humbling and also kind of scary. Maybe we can go deeper into all that next time, and
okay,
I'll tell you why. I think it's so scary
okay, great.
because yeah, there's a lot that gets pushed up in those projections. I think from
Hmm.
really hectic expectations that women have from men.
Hmm.
And a lot of struggle around what to do with all that. So we can talk about that next time.
Okay.
And last words are yours. Anything more you want to say to close for today?
Uh, yeah, check out the next talk, because we're just getting started. The next one's gonna be even better.
Yes.
And yeah, thanks everybody for checking this one out.
Yeah. Thank you, Marcus. Have a good uh, rest after all this deep delving into the male psyche. And we look forward to speaking to you again.
Great.
Bye-bye.